The X-Zone radio and TV show is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X-Zone radio and TV show or in any manner endorsed by Rob McConnell, Relmar McConnell Media Company, Talkstar Radio Network, its affiliated stations, or employees.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Well, excuse me, but I think you got my chair. No, that one's not taken, I don't mind. If you sit here, I'll be glad to share.
I just couldn't help that one, X-Zone Nation, that's chaired by George Strait. It reminds me of watching Clint Eastwood talking to a chair at the RNC a couple of weeks ago. I think Dirty Harry went batty Harry. Well, that's just my own personal opinion, but you know, who knows? Who really knows? Well, my guest this hour just might have the inside scoop on what that was all about, X-Zone Nation. Morrow Wilson is my special guest, and he is a direct descendant of both the Declaration of Independence signer and the United States Constitution. Morrow Wilson graduated from the Putney School and from Columbia College, where he studied English and American literature with, among others, Mark Van Doren and Lionel Trilling. His father was a writer and protege of Theodore Dreiser. How do you say that? Dreiser?
Dreiser, yeah.
Dreiser, yeah. Author of some 36 books, as well as articles in every major American magazine, and a reporter for the Arkansas Gazette, the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, and the New York Times. Now, my guest this hour is Morrow Wilson. And as I said, he's the celebrated journalist and son of and author Charles Wilson, and he's an award-winning career personnel as an actor, writer, and cable television chief. And now he reaches a new plateau, X-Zone Nation, with his latest novel, David Sunshine. Joining me now is Morrow Wilson. And Morrow, welcome to the X-Zone.
Well, thank you so much, Rob. It's a great pleasure to be here.
The chair, what was the story behind Clint Eastwood and, talking to an invisible party on the chair?
Well, I would tell you, it's a very old acting exercise, and it's a very old vaudeville routine. It's been practiced for, I suppose a couple of centuries. And the idea is you do what Clint did. And I must tell you that I was not offended. I mean, I thought that when he came out at the beginning, I thought he was pretty funny. I thought he'd begin to kind of go a little vague toward the second half of it, but I enjoyed it. I think what the Republicans wanted, and I think at the convention, and I think they were probably right to want it, was just a little comic break, before because it had been so serious, and they'd been talking about, such profound issues and patriotism and freedom and in the Republican philosophy, and all of these things are not leavened by much humor, and so here came Clint to give him just a little break of comic relief before they got into, if I'm not mistaken, Governor Romney's important speech, and I think it backfired for a lot of the media who didn't understand it and who seemed to be outraged by it. But as a guy who's looking at conventions and maybe is a little bit of a news junkie, and I'm very interested in politics because it's kind of my family store. You mentioned my illustrious ancestor who was on the Supreme Court and all that stuff. And to me, I just thought, well, this is what he's trying to do, and I'd give him a B+. I mean, I thought he did okay. You may not feel that way.
Oh, no, listen, I love Clint. I think he's an icon. I've seen every Dirty Harry movie. I've seen every movie that he's ever been in. Love the good old spaghetti westerns, where he was the only person who you could actually look at the lips and listen to the words and everything was in total sync.
True. I remember him back in the days of Rawhide.
Oh, my heavens, yeah.
He's one of those guys who, very rare, I think, in the show business, a guy whose career really is 50 years. I mean, you don't see very many people like that.
My friend, please stand by. Morrow Wilson is my guest this hour, X-O Nation. And his website is www.davidssunshinethenewnovel.com. And when we come back from this commercial break in 2 minutes, we're going to be talking more about the media. We're going to be talking to Morrow about his role throughout the years in the media. And we'll also be talking to him about his late ex-wife. And we're going to keep that as a cliffhanger. My name is Rob McConnell. This is The X-Zone. We'll be back on the other side of this 2-minute commercial break as we continue from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.
Could I talk you out of a lie? Well, thank you. Could I drink you?
I don't know, for some reason I feel like a cigar, a shot of bourbon, and spaghetti. What is it with that song? No idea.
Speaking of Clint Eastwood,
Yeah. Morrow Wilson is our special guest this hour, X-Zone Nation. We're talking about Morrow's new book entitled David Sunshine. His website is www.davidsunshinethenewnovel.com. I understand that you actually wrote David Sunshine as a contemporary expose. 2 questions for you, Morrow. Why wasn't it published then, and why is it published now, 40 years later?
Good question. Well, it was actually when it was first written, which was in the 60s, very close to the adventures that it describes. There was a publisher who took it, gave me what in those days would be called a princely advance, and then at the last minute backed out. Was in breach of contract. And this didn't necessarily make me miserable because once everyone loves to be the second person to discover you, so literary agents began to descend on me and say, we can sell it, and they couldn't. And then word got back to me that this actually was a dangerous book because the people in the book who were very obvious. I mean, it's a novel, but as you say at the beginning of where fiction is fact and fact is fiction, it was like that. So they said, well, it'll be very obvious, transparently obvious who these people are. They're going to sue us, and I said, well, but everything here is true. I mean, even down to the dialogue. They're not going to have a leg to stand on. I mean, why don't you? And anyway, how shall I say? More cautious heads prevailed. So I just found that. And by the way, I don't happen to think that was the reason. I think the reason was that at that time, the man who was being parodied in my book was so powerful, such an important force in television at that time, that people were just going along with the trend. I mean, if the New Yorker was writing a profile of him, if the New York Times was putting our show on the front page every Monday morning after it was broadcast, don't mess around with the common wisdom. So I think that was essentially it. They didn't want to. No one was really interested in seeing this icon made fun of. Now, within a matter really of a very short period of time, his true colors began to show, and pretty soon he became a joke. But by then, my book was safely ensconced in the drawer, and it really wasn't exactly current, and I was kind of discouraged. So But the other day, I mean, really the other month, not very long ago, this very year, I just, I opened it up, the drawer, I opened up the box, I dusted it off, I looked at it, and I said, it's a pretty good book. I think you should try to publish it.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, at this point, it had aged from being a contemporary expose to being historical fiction, because none of the people and the events that it was recounting were around anymore.
Right.
So it was. So that's how. That's why it. I mean, it almost got published then, which would have really made a great change in my life in a lot of ways, but it didn't, and so I just thought, let's publish it now. And my surprise has been, and this is really, I mean, I really mean this without any false modesty or anything, that I didn't expect any particular interest in it. I mean, it's really, really a good book. I say that as the author, so of course I'm prejudiced.
Sure.
But people suddenly. I mean, I have had people wanting review copies like crazy, and good people like you calling up and saying, let's do an interview, and I'm flabbergasted and very, very happy about the way things are going. So at least so far. I mean, who knows? It may all just grind to a halt one of these minutes, but so far it seems to be building. So I'm pleased.
Tell me, you've been in the media industry, advertising industry for a number of years now.
Yes.
How have you seen the change of all the multiple channels that are available and in my opinion, the decrease in quality programming?
Yeah, well, I think your opinion is absolutely correct. I mean, I think if we look at television, well, really, in a way, that's part of what the novel is about, because the novel is the story of a this raw-boned, very innocent, sort of college football hero who comes to New York from Arkansas to, completely innocent. He wants to make his way, because at that point it's the 60s, and the golden age of television, so-called, that is the 50s, when you had all these wonderful actors, James Dean, Paul Newman, Charlton Heston, Rod Steiger, Joanne Woodward, Steve McQueen. All these people were working on television. Paddy Chayefsky was writing, Rod Serling was writing, Robert Allen Arthur was writing these wonderful, television was a whole sort of creative renaissance. But, of course, it was kind of still a second-class citizen. People would say, well, I don't do television. Actors would say that. But what happened, of course, is that there came this time when that golden age was kind of beginning to, the sun was setting on that, and my hero walks into it at just that moment, and he goes to work for the guy who is the most highly thought of, highly respected, idealized producer in all of television. He also happens to run a talk show, so his face and name are very familiar to people. And this guy walks into this world where he thinks this guy is quality television. I mean, PBS hadn't even started. Hadn't even really gotten started up. Mm-hmm. And this is the guy who's going to make it all continue, the golden age. But the guy turns out to be exactly the opposite of what he appears, and that's the beginning of the story.
I wonder what would happen if viewers on, let's say, any given day after supper, as we used to do in the 50s, go sit in front of the television set, by some fluke in the time-space continuum, turned on their television set and there was Jerry Springer.
Uh-huh.
What does this tell you about, having been in the media, tell you about society, the type of viewer that television is now drawing when shows like Jerry Springer, Maury Povich, and the rest are just crap, in my opinion?
I think you're absolutely right. That's the key point. It's not only television that has gone, keeps going down this slippery slope to the best. It seems often that every decade we look back on was better than the decade that followed it, and I think that those talk shows I mean, my joke is, on talk shows when I was a kid walking into this world, we talked. I mean, you didn't have to have a book to sell or a line of cosmetics or a new movie to plug. People were on talk shows because they were interesting talkers. Now it became a much more cynical business, a much more profit-oriented business, and pretty soon it became anything for ratings. And this, I think, the common phrase is dumbing down. But I think, and I think that has proved very, very successful. I think that these talk shows now where people hit you with chairs, and where security guards roam the floor to try to keep bones from being broken. I mean, this is just inexcusably bad. But I think that the people who watch those shows are not unlike the people who used to watch executions of the guillotine. I mean, they are applauding the most horrible, gruesome, ugly stuff. Now that's not the whole story, and it's very easy to say, well, when I was a kid it was better. But I mean, and you can make that argument. But and I don't mean to be an apologist for the changes, but I think that there are certain things about cable TV which and certain things about broadcast TV that are still okay. The problem is that this stuff, this television, is the literature of a generation. And back in the olden days when Leave It to Beaver and Father Knows Best and that kind of clean-cut American stuff was the literature, well, that's what kids grew up on. Before that, we grew up on comic books, and before that, we grew up on radio. But they all had different cultural meanings. And now we've had these awful reality shows as our nation's literature for over a decade.
The sad part is, in my opinion, the word reality doesn't even belong in the same sentence as these shows because they're
totally
far from
totally fraudulent.
Exactly.
You're absolutely right.
Like how many people keep on going on to Maury Povich for a DNA test? Like, my God.
I know. Anything to be on television.
Yeah.
That's the other strange thing. By the way, one of the big changes is that whereas in the olden days, Laurence Olivier was, well, I don't do television, or Marlon Brando would say, I want to do television. Now, it seems like people will sell their soul to the devil for 15 minutes of TV time. To be on a show like Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader?
Yeah.
Which I confess I'm often not. But where they'd be very happy to go on, lose, but just walk, just sashay off with a big smile on their face because for 10 minutes they were on television.
Mind you, back in our day, Morrow, there were only 6, 7 channels at any given time, not hundreds upon hundreds. Yeah, exactly. You and I have to take our news break at the bottom of the hour, Morrow. Please stand by. XO Nation, our very special guest this hour is Morrow Wilson. We're talking tomorrow about his new book that is out, David Sunshine. Morrow's website is www.davidsunshinethenewnovel.com. That's www.davidsunshinethenewnovel.com. Don't forget the X Chronicles newspaper comes out on November the 27th on its worldwide distribution. And if you'd like to get involved, you can just send an email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. And now the X Chronicles newspaper is available in print, Barnes & Noble, CreateSpace, and Amazon.com. We'll be back on the other side of this news break as we continue from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away. You're listening to the X-Zone Radio Show, live and around the world on the Talkstar Radio Network, X-Zone Broadcast Network, UK High Definition Radio, Euro High Definition Radio, and Star Cable. Our toll-free telephone number worldwide is 1-800-610-7035. Our email address, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On MSN Messenger, xzoneradiotv@hotmail.com, and our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com.
Welcome back. Your dreams were your ticket out. Welcome back to that same old place that you laughed about. Well, the names have all changed since you hung around, but those dreams have remained and they've turned around.
Welcome back, everyone. Morrow Wilson is my special guest. We're talking about Morrow's new book entitled David Sunshine. And his website is www.davidssunshine.thenewnovel.com. David, tell us about your late ex-wife, Golden Girl herself, Rue McClanahan.
Well, she, I will, tell you from the point of view of a widower and somebody who was a great admirer. I believe that she was the finest comedic actress in the English-speaking world, and I loved to watch her work. I found her to be an extraordinarily charming person. She was also very, very beloved of her public. In fact, that was it wasn't even the peak of her Golden Girl success. It was some years after, when she and I had met. They did an internet survey and found her to be among the 5 most beloved people on earth. I mean, people just loved her. She was smart, she was funny, and she was as kind to. She handled fame as well as anyone I've ever seen. I've spent a lot of years walking down the streets of New York with famous people. I never saw anybody who was more gracious, kinder to fans than was Rue. And a lot of times, it's important to say that a lot of times, when you're faced with your hero, as we've all perhaps been at one time or another, if we've been lucky enough to, you run into Burt Lancaster or William Holden or whoever it happened to be for whatever era we are, you approach him very stealthily. It's like, oh, excuse me, Mr. Mr. Gable. I don't want to, well, Rue would make you right at ease. You want an autograph? Sure. Would you like to take a picture? Sure. I spent a lot of my time. I mean, I knew when I married her that I was going to be called Mr. McClanahan, and I knew that I was going to have to be told to dive the hell out of the way because we want to take a picture of her and my wife, that kind of thing. And I was ready for that. I was prepared for that. And Rue was a gal who had been divorced 5 times.
My goodness.
Before I met her, and that's kind of an amazing statistic. And we got married, and in her autobiography, which came out a couple of years before her death, she says in there that our marriage lasted longer than her first 5 put together. So I don't know. Maybe I was doing something right. I don't know. But I one of the things about her that was very important to me was that I not use her to because for any reason. I mean that I not be the spouse who rides her coattails to acting glory, or I not be the guy who takes over her finances and decides to run her life, and I didn't want to be either of those things, and I would and I arranged not to be. I think, in fact, for various reasons, and they were always very, very important, I think Rue and I only worked together for money on 4 separate occasions, and I think only 3 of those were television. We turned down many, many more shows where people would say, "We want you," meaning her, and we'll throw in a part for your husband. And I would say, on that basis, you make the choice whether you want the show or not, but I'm not going to participate in it. So it was a relationship. I guess you'd say a relationship of equals in a way, because I certainly was. I certainly loved her madly, but I was not in awe of her in the sense of that she was a celebrity, and I never wanted to use her celebrity. So being married to her was there was a lot of fun involved in that, because she was so charming, she was so outgoing, and she was so funny. In fact, I remember, this is a typical Ruth story. She was could be absent-minded, not on stage. I mean, not when she was working. When she was working, she was just impossible to stop. But in her personal life, it was a little more how shall I say, casual. And I remember at one point she showed up late for something, and it was not unusual for her to be late. In fact, she always was. But she showed up late for something, and she looked at me and she said, "I bet you were wondering where the hell I was." And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Well, so was I." And she managed to get lost. And so that was she had a good sense of humor, and I mean, just a marvelous sense of humor. And to have a woman who is funny, and not just funny but beautiful, and not just funny and beautiful but a great actress. I mean, you don't find people like that. I mean, that's once in a lifetime.
How close to her on stage character on The Golden Girls was she in real life?
Not.
No
really.
way.
I mean, she was she was very down to earth. She was had an awful lot of horse sense, and she good common sense. She was, after all, not unlike the hero of my book. She was a gal who had come out of nowhere. I mean, a little town in Oklahoma, southern Oklahoma, that was that's barely on the map.
Right.
And she had gone on to achieve world recognition. I mean, she's, I say, one of the 5th most beloved, I think the 5th most beloved person on earth. So that's she was very canny. And also very generous, very open. She was one of the few people I knew who, if you had a script for her, you wanted her to say, you'd be great for my script. You could hand that script to her in a parking lot without ever having introduced yourself, and she would read it. Wow. And sometimes she would actually do the project. She was always very, very open that way. She loved, as all great actresses do, she loved to act. So that's so. But as to her being Blanche, she certainly had all the charm of Blanche, and she certainly had all the clothes of Blanche, because that was in her contract. She had her own designer.
Wow.
On Golden Girls to design. She was the only one of the 4 who had her own designer to design her clothes, and she had in her contract that all those clothes went to her, and there would be 5 changes in every episode of Golden Girls. So she ended up with more clothes than than the average Salvation Army office has. It's just amazing. And we had half our apartment was full of clothes, whatever apartment it was. But she was she certainly was cheerful. She certainly was up all the time. She was a very sexy person, very flirtatious person, and completely feminine gal.
Fantastic. Listen, let's just get back to your book for a second, David Sunshine. I've been going over the material that you were kind enough to send to us, and your book's been called an adventure story, a romance story, and a social novel. What would you call it?
Well, I tell you, this will sound almost contradictory, but there are two things I'd like to call it. I'd like to say, first of all, it's a book that is, in a certain sense, a light book. That is, in the sense that it is a very funny book. When this innocent guy, I mean, it's one of the oldest routines, and starting back with the ancient Greeks, when an innocent comes to the big city, what happens to him? There's that.
Yeah.
There are many funny characters, and in the same sense that Mark Twain or Dickens has these very broad characters who make you laugh as you read the book, it still remains a serious book. And so I guess to me, and now I'm just talking sort of in a very abstract way, but I think to me, I would like people to understand that it's serious literature. It's about people who pursue the American dream. It is an adventure story. Of course, there's romance in it. There's lots of that. It's a kind of mythic story in a way, because, as I say, the innocent coming to the big city is a myth we've always had with us. But it should be enjoyable. It should make you. I mean, there are some poignant moments, and there are some heartbreaking moments in it. But it's a book that by and large should make you laugh. If I'm doing my job, it will make you laugh most of the time.
What's the purpose of your novel?
Good question. The purpose at the time that I wrote it was to, and I was quite serious in this way, and not spiteful either. Just seriously, I wanted to say to the world, look, you guys are putting this guy in, the New York Times, and you're saying he's the greatest producer in history, and the fact of the matter is he is a self-confessed fraud. I mean, in the interview, the job interview, the first job interview that our hero takes, which, by the way, is an absolute transcript of my job interview with this guy, he says, in so many words, I'm a con artist. I'm that. So at the beginning, I just wanted people to know that this was that don't get crazy about this guy. This guy is not the great hope you think he is. This guy is going to go the way. I mean, I didn't know it then, of course. I mean, because these people didn't exist. But he will go the way of Jerry Springer. He will become, crass, all that stuff. So you've got to know that. Don't think he's what he's not. That was the first purpose. Then, once that kind of temporary situation, the expose aspect of it had aged, and so, as I say, a book that was contemporary fiction was now, in 2012, a piece of historical fiction. It is an extremely accurate portrayal of what life was like in the 60s, which by the way were very different. And I don't just mean because we had rotary phones and people smoked and the Mad Men stuff, which is all quite so. But it was different also in that the language was very different. I mean, we now use profane and harsh language in a way that wouldn't have been tolerated in those days.
No.
I mean, we use words now that in mixed company that people wouldn't even have said, if they were GIs in World War II, and in those days, if somebody, and I won't say what curse words, but if somebody said, a very simple thing.
Sure, any of the 7 words that George Carlin said weren't to be said on radio or TV.
In those days, if you said hell or damn, it was like, what? It really got your attention.
That's right.
I mean, somebody said, he's a damn fool. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. So it was a much more polite time, and it was also there were many different things about it. But when you look at the 60s, I tell you, Rob, the thing that drives me, just I think about all the time, the 60s were the strangest decade, because on the one hand you had these straight-laced people
Yeah.
who were still living the 50s dream. You know, when we had the Kennedys, you know, they were, you know, people who wore suits and ties and
Short hair.
very
Yeah.
very establishment people. And then along came the Beatles, and then pretty soon we had Woodstock, and
Yeah.
then we had those horrible, you know, we called it the decade of love, and there was some truth to you know, the Woodstocks and the.
But when you look at the racial rioting that went on, it was
right,
like,
and
wow.
the cities in flames, and race riots in almost every
Yeah.
city, and you know, and the assassinations of three of our greatest leaders. I mean, it was a time full of the most astonishing contradictions. I don't think we'd had anything like that since the 1930s, when in New York, you know, Cole Porter would be dressed up in white tie and tails to go see the latest opening of his latest sophisticated show, while out west, you know, Bonnie Parker and John Dillinger were robbing banks and shooting people.
Yeah.
You know, and it was total depression and dust bowl. It's that kind of contrast, all within a 10-year period, that makes the difference.
Okay, my friend, stand by. You and I have to take our commercial break, our final break. My goodness, this hour has gone by so fast. When we come back, I'd just like to do a little bit of a recap and then get your impression of how you see the media in the next 10 to 15 years.
Oh.
Sounds like a plan. Stand
I
by.
look forward. I hope I can answer that.
I'm sure you can. Exonation, my guest this hour is Morrow Wilson, www.davidssunshinethenewnovel.com, and we'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away.
If you believe in forever, then life
If you're going to San Francisco, be sure to wear some flowers in your hair. If you're going to San Francisco, you're gonna meet some gentle people there.
Welcome back, everyone. My guest this hour is Morrow Wilson. He's the author of David's Sunshine, and Morrow's website is www.davidssunshinethenewnovel.com. First of all, Morrow, I want to thank you so much for joining us. It's been a great hour with you. You know, here we are, the year 2012. We're looking on to 2013. We've seen the industry that we're both involved with change very fast. It's the dawning of the age of immediacy. How do you see television, radio, and the media in the next 10 to 15 years?
Wow. Well, first of all, let me thank you, dear friend. This has been a wonderful hour for me. You know, there's an old saying, you know, that predicting is very hard, particularly when it comes to the future. If you had said to me, or I had said to you 15 years ago, what do you think it's going to be like in 15 years? We would be nowhere near, you know,
Isn't that
we
the truth?
couldn't have imagined it.
Yeah.
I see it, and I don't mean this in a bad way, I see it splintering. I see there being more and more ways to get news and entertainment,
Mm-hmm.
you know, whether it's on that little, you know, that little cell phone that everybody's got,
Yeah.
or on the, or any of the more standard. I mean, obviously the internet has made an immense change in every way in the world. I can't imagine that that's not going to be improved upon and perfected, and that there won't be great excesses too that we haven't even, I mean, negative things that we haven't even imagined.
But let me ask you this, as a person who's been involved with major companies such as CBS,
Yeah.
being married to Rue McClanahan and knowing the people that you know within the industry, isn't it possible that we are getting to a point where instantaneous news and the covering of events instantaneously can be dangerous?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we've seen time and again that people falsify things, whether it's through Photoshop or whether it's for just little personal things, or whether it's giant political matters where people will say such and a dreadful event is about to take place, and it's not so at all. So yes, of course, I mean we are. This is the great danger of freedom of speech is which of course we're all for. I mean we're in the freedom of speech business, but the great danger is of course that liberty is mistaken for license.
Yeah.
And people just do conscienceless people do evil things just gratuitously for no reason, and great harm can be done that way. So yes, I do see that as I see that as when I was talking about the excesses, the negative excesses in the future that I'm sure will be there. I definitely see that. I also see though, a chance for a broader and broader group of people to see more and more of what the reality of our world is. Now that's such an abstract statement that it almost doesn't even.
Well, what'll happen? What has to happen? We have to bring you back to get the results of that statement and further extrapolate it to see where we're going to be going based on the massive experience that you hold. And I just want to again thank you so much for being with us, and I look forward to the next time you join us here in the X Zone.
That would be a great discussion, wouldn't it?
It sure
I would love to have it with you.
Morrow, take care of yourself, my friend. And
Thank you, dear friend. This has been very, very enjoyable, and just keep up the good work. You're doing a hell of a job.
Thanks a lot. We'll be back on the other side of the news. Don't go away.